Assalamualaikum. Can we continue with the new topic, part 3, on financial accounting and reporting in public sector? Okay, so in this lecture, we'll cover objective of financial accounting and reporting, uses of public sector accounting financial information, and then basis of accounting, what that is relevant in public sector organizations. And we also will touch on financial accounting and reporting standards. Okay, for a start, we'll see these quotes in ayat of Quran, Surah Baqarah. All you who believe, when you deal with each other in transactions involving future obligations in a fixed period of time, okay, reduce them to writing. Okay, put in writing. Let a scribe write down faithfully as between the parties. Okay, so it shows that the basis of accounting in Islam is pretty much emphasized. Okay, why financial reporting in public sector is important? Okay, so the first one, to establish an appropriate accounting system for the purpose of public accounting public resources. Okay, so because it's a huge amount of money being allocated. So we discuss about budget. So and budget being spent for various of activities in the government, various ministries, various agencies. Okay, now is a reporting side. Okay, so what are the accounting system available, and what are reporting system that can support this? Okay, definitely financial reporting is equally important for managerial use as well as for accountability to the external parties. So that's why the second point there, to execute the function of custodianship and stewardship over public resources. Okay, so public servants, both the elected civil servants as well as appointed civil servants, okay, the controlling officers, they are accountable to the public, to the users, to the taxpayers, right? Because they use public money is being allocated to them, and they are spending them for various activities. Okay, that is beneficial to Malaysian in general, or to any other governments, to the public, right? With that, they will be able to discharge public accountability over all kinds of public resources. Right. Here, based on International Public Sector Accounting Standard Board, IPSAS, okay, ASB is part of IFAC. So in IFAC, there is a special board in charging to develop accounting standards for public sector, right? So in that case, financial reporting objectives in public sector to provide information about the entity that is useful to users for accountability purposes and for decision-making purposes. To discharge accountability obligations, provision of information about resources entrusted for service deliveries. Okay, so it's very important because if you talk about efficiency, effectiveness, right? So you need this how much it costs. So accounting information is the backbone of all these initiatives. Service delivery achievement during reporting period and its capacity to continue to provide future services. Because government, they need to, when they spend, they need they have to collect money, but at the same time, okay, the level of liabilities, for instance, the level of debts, it's also important to be able to tell, okay, to what extent governments can still continue to support the future activities. Okay, do they have enough money to pay the debts, and also enough money to support the new activities in the government? So this is very important, okay, and it's good that we are, and through financial reporting, this can be done. Okay, financial information reporting objective in the public sector by National Council on Government Accounting. They said, I think this one is in the US. Demonstrating accountability and stewardship. Okay. Secondly, decision making in economic, political, and social purposes. Right. So because this is government, okay, government entities, okay, not only economics, because they are not only accountable to shareholders. Okay, they have voters that support them, and social at large. They also provide pressures for government to perform. Okay, evaluating managerial and organizational performance. So the basis of this is based on financial reporting. I think if you understand how financial reporting is applicable, applied, and practiced in private sector, so similarly, this also can be applied in public sector organizations. Okay, for financial reporting for accountability and decision making, assessing the compliance of government agencies with legal and other statutory requirements regarding how resources are obtained and spent. Okay, that is for public accountability, because the government agencies, okay, the civil servants, there are a series of regulations that they must comply. Okay, and if they spend what is being allocated for specific budgets, so they must use them accordingly. Okay, so there are very detailed instructions, government regulations or financial regulations on that. Okay, secondly, ensuring relevant authorities in government are making rational decisions about allocation, distribution, and utilization of resources for various sectors of the economy. Okay, so that's government basically supporting. If you look at ministries, they are basically focusing on every sector in the economy: education, healthcare, entrepreneurial development, economy, okay, banking system, social systems, so all walks of and infrastructure. If you talk about transportations, okay, security, defense. I think COVID give a good example how good is okay, the security, the defense of the country, as well as the healthcare, and also government provides regulations and framework for the use of technology, as well as okay, the transportations. So many people at work at that time, so you can see that clearly. So in that case, how government have enough information to make decisions. Okay. Thirdly, assessing the capability and capacity of government organization to provide high quality products and services, and its ability to continue to serve the public. Okay, that's also part of public accountability. Right. So financial accounting also reporting can be used for performance evaluation, serving as a useful tool to monitor performance of government organizations in terms of their efficiency and effectiveness in using our public resources. Okay, so these two and three actually with the economy is very powerful performance measure, but the problem is, do they have the information? Okay, do they have the quality of information? Okay, that need to be developed. Okay, particularly a performance measure related to efficiency and effectiveness. Okay, and good accounting system, in this case is a good financial accounting system, can capture the total costs of government entities. So in that way, then you can tell how efficient they are. Okay, but the question is to what extent they can comply with it, with these requirements. Providing government an opportunity to put forward statement of its achievement to be influential users and to influential users in public. Okay, so I think this is very similar to private sector when you have statement of financial performance and statement of financial position. Okay, so and in a comprehensive manner. Okay, we move on now. Features of financial accounting and reporting for public sector. Okay, the characteristics of financial accounting and reporting, because this in a way can provide the basis of comparison between what the financial accounting reporting in public sector as compared to the commonly found in private sector organizations. Okay, the first is a reporting entity. Okay, so what is the reporting entity? In the case of public sector organizations, okay, it can also be you can also be found that based on funds. Okay, a different type of funds. Okay, so that's why accounting entity a fund can become an accounting entity. Because in government organizations, in government itself, there are a series of funds and that is available because they have multiple sources of funding. Okay, it can be from general funding from taxations, as well as there is a specified restricted funding from various of source, including donations, okay, or debts, okay, or specific endowments. So these require a separate set of accounting records for each fund. Right. Secondly, reporting period. Okay, reporting period for government is fiscal year. Okay, or accounting period, they call it accounting period. Okay, for private sector, it can be any dates, but generally it can be in 31st December, can be in April, it can be in June or July. Okay, depending on what the common practice within the certain industries or what decided by the company. But in the case of government, it must be fiscal year. So fiscal year is basically must be ended and by 31st of December. Okay. Third, basis of accounting. Right. So if you look at this basis of accounting, there are multiple bases. Okay. Traditionally, commonly used is cash basis, and then you have modified cash basis. Okay. So we'll elaborate a bit more on all these differences. Modified accrual basis as well as full accrual. Okay, these are the latest development in the government where they are following strictly the what there is in private sector, which is adoption for full accrual accounting. Okay, so there must be reason for that behind that. So I think you should be able to know and try to understand a bit more detail why these bases have been adopted by government, but now why the current trend moving towards full accrual in accounting. Okay, with regards to features of public sector accounting and in terms of reporting of assets and liabilities, under cash basis, so no disclosure of assets and liabilities under the balance sheet or under the statement of financial performance. Okay, because it is a cash basis, other than cash items and the equity items. Okay, so the equity will be a fund balance. Okay, so if you look at that, that is fund balance. Okay, very interesting, and this is even is widely used in Malaysia. Okay, because as I mentioned earlier, the basis of accounting, the accounting entity is fund, so you have fund balance. Right, under cash basis, the financial statements, okay, statement of receipt and expenditures, as well as statement of financial performance. Okay, so the balance sheet, okay, the balance sheet is there, but the items within the balance sheet is limited to cash items. Right, users of financial accounting information. Okay, taxpayers definitely they want to know how much the government are using the money and for what for they spend the money. For various ministries and government agencies. Okay, investors, grantors, okay, investors, to the country. They want to have a stable government that can support the economic activities. Okay, fee-paying service recipients. Okay, I think this one is applicable for almost all government services. Somehow they need to pay. Okay, counter-based. Okay, hospitals. Even the major public service like education and hospitals. Okay, suppliers of government, definitely they want to know, okay, can government be able to have pay them, or can government launch new projects? Okay, that all depends on information. Okay, if like currently now, okay, when there is not so much market uncertainties, okay, within the crisis of COVID, so it is expected that government has less revenue to collect, so the expenditures will be lesser. So suppliers, okay, definitely they have to plan because now, okay, the jobs to be awarded by the government will be much lesser. So they have to plan to survive. Okay, so all this information definitely okay collected okay through understanding both from the market understanding information as well as financial reporting. So much clearer, particularly the level of debts by the government. So one of the areas that if more debts, they have to service the debts. But so large amount of money to service the debts, then less money for operation. Legislative bodies, okay, definitely they are relying on financial reporting, heavily. I think if you look at this list of users, definitely legislative bodies is the main one. Okay, through Public Account Committee, okay, they basically scrutinize government agencies, okay, how they use the public money through the financial reports, okay, audited financial reports, okay, provided by the Accountants General as well as audited by National Audit Department. Okay, so management of the government agencies, definitely they are looking closely, particularly those government entities that have more autonomy, like statutory bodies, okay, like GLC, and the government as a whole. Oversight bodies, okay, can be regulatory bodies, as well as of course the main oversight bodies for the government is what is the parliament. Okay. Okay, now we discuss a bit more details on fund accounting. Okay, because this is widely used, considered as the main accounting techniques. Okay, with regards to public sector, I think if you can develop good understanding of this fund accounting, so it will be a good knowledge for you for public sector accounting. Okay, fund accounting recognizes each class of fund has a unique characteristics and objectives. Okay, look at this, the characteristics of fund accounting. Okay, first one, each fund is an accounting entity. Separate financial statements are prepared for each fund. Okay, so that's for number one. And then each fund produces separate financial statements. Okay, so it's basically an accounting entity. Okay, there's also two types of fund. One is unrestricted funds, okay, which can be spent for any charitable purposes of a charity. Okay, of course, these are based on the accounting standards. It's on SOP. Okay, so unrestricted, so more general, can be used for any purpose as long as within the framework that is being authorized. Okay, lastly, restricted fund. So really have to look at the trust deeds, look at what is the mandate for the fund. Then money can only be spent for that. If it is the money being allocated for education, okay, fund for education. So the money must be used, the fund must be used for education. It cannot be used for business. It cannot be used for healthcare. Okay, so that restricted fund. Right, so this one, characteristics of fund accounting based on FRS 102 SOP. Okay, so what does it mean by unrestricted fund? Are spent at the discretion of trustee. Okay, trustee means like the board of governors. Okay, the board of trustees. So they are basically the managing the fund. Right, it can be used to supplement expenditures made from restricted fund and to be set aside to be used for future commitments. Okay, so the use is a bit general as compared to restricted funds. Okay, whereas restricted funds, okay, so what does it mean? Can only be lawfully used for specific purpose. Okay, restricted by law or the trust deeds. Okay, so if the board of trustee they want to spend, they have to look at the trust deeds. So what is allowed, what is not allowed. Okay, so as I mentioned here, for education, only for education related activities. Restricted fund can be categorized in two types: restricted income funds or endowment funds. Okay, so restricted income funds are to be spent or applied within a reasonable period from their receipt for specific purpose of the funds. Whereas endowment, I think these are the common form of restricted funds, where the income to be used to achieve the purposes. Okay, so the capital, the main principle of the fund will remain intact. Okay, so I think this is more beneficial. So it's more sustainable for future periods to achieve, because sometimes to achieve the objective of a certain fund require a long time. Okay, for them to be there, to be able to develop. Okay, so if you look at specific funds, in the Malaysian government there are so many funds that become a very big organization. Okay, you have Tabung Haji, okay, the Pilgrimage Fund. You have EPF, Employee Provident Fund. It's an organization by itself. Okay, and others. Okay, so that's why it's mentioned here. The reporting of SOP is based on FRS 102 Statement of Recommended Practices. Okay. For fund accounting. Yeah. Okay, for reporting and maintaining the accounting records, entity must separately identify each restricted fund and the income received and expenditure made from each restricted fund. Okay, so I transfer between fund, so there is a caption, separate caption in financial statement to show there is transfer between funds. Okay, if the trust did allow that transfer of funds can be done, but that need to be disclosed as a separate item in the financial statements. Okay, and the transfer must be at the gross figure as a SOP. Right. Further elaboration, features of public sector organization funds. The resources of government entity are not fungible and cannot be treated as one mass. Okay, this basically referring to the government funds. To a certain extent, there are restrictions of use, so they cannot be pulled together and used for general purpose. Specific restrictions are made on how money paid to the government entity can be spent. Okay, and interestingly also you can if you look at this last third point, multiple funds may also exist in one public sector organizations. Okay, like for instance our university. Okay, there are multiple funds, so you cannot just have one accounting report for the whole university, but separate fund they must also have separate financial statements. In Malaysian governments, I was told that there are hundreds of them, trust funds. Okay, so each one of them require separate financial statements. Okay, application of fund accounting. Public sector as a government entity does not have pool of resources that can be used indiscriminately. Okay, fund accounting enable public sector organizations to prepare separate financial statements for different purposes and maintain. Okay, in the Malaysian government, federal concentrated fund for revenue, trust, and loan accounts. Okay, I think we will discuss this a bit more. The application of fund accounting in Malaysian government. Okay, now we move on to further elaboration on basis of accounting. Okay, I think we talk about cash, talk about modified cash, modified accrual, and full accrual. Okay, so you can see the continuum. And I think at this point, what you understand about accrual accounting in other subject, other courses, okay, you can apply here in public sector accounting. But at the same time, there is a cash basis, okay, and hybrid of cash basis and accrual basis. Okay, we have modified cash. So we'll look at it a bit more. Okay, with regards to recognition of transactions. Okay, I think this normally for sales. Okay, sales order or received, then good received or good dispatch if in case of your suppliers providing the services, and then cash received. So if you look at this continuum, so which basis of accounting is applicable, right? So definitely, okay. The first one is commitment accounting. Yeah? Commitment accounting. This one is the recording of the transactions started when order is being received or purchase order is being issued. Okay, so they call it commitment accounting. Commitment accounting is very useful for budgetary control. Okay, for budgetary control, so that the government agencies will not overspend their budget. Okay, accrual accounting when performance of the services. Okay, and lastly cash accounting. Okay, so if you look at in terms of recognition of transactions, okay, let's say we talk about purchase, right? So in under commitment accounting will be purchase order, so they start book the transaction. Okay, right. And then accrual accounting. So when the services is being delivered, then they book the transactions. When cash basis, only when the cash is received or cash is paid, then they book in the accounting system. Okay, but nevertheless, for budgetary control purposes, definitely government organizations, they have a way of reporting. Okay, when once the purchase order is being issued, or when the goods are being provided, only that the transactions in terms of reporting, okay, only cash receipt or cash paid will be reported in the financial statements. Okay, in the cash accounting system, see by IFAC, accounting technique that recognize transactions and other events when cash is received or paid by the entity, right? The measurement focus of the financial statement is balances of cash and its changes for the period. Okay, so this one is cash accounting as accounting systems, or basis of accounting as well. Okay, features of cash accounting recognize only cash inflow and outflows. Okay, purchases are only recognized when cash is paid, no creditors. So creditors are not reported in the financial statements. Okay, of course, it can be disclosed in the notes. Balance sheet items limited to cash, no assets or liabilities, okay, being reported on the face of balance sheet. Sales are only recognized when cash is received. Okay, so no debtors are being reported on the face of financial statements. Final accounts reporting based on cash-based transactions. Okay, so because of limitation of information in the face of financial statements, then under the cash accounting environment, so the disclosure under cash accounting, so you can see this statement of cash receipt and payments, all cash receipt and payments and cash balance controlled by the entity, and payment made by third parties, okay, so separately disclosed. Right, if you look at accounting policies and explanatory notes, detailed information on amounts shown in the face of financial statements, info required and encouraged to be disclosed. Okay, there are two categories of information. I think the first one is quite common. If you look at, every time when you have items in the financial statements, you have statements of notes. But there is also item here where there is information required or encouraged to be disclosed. Okay, so what are the additional information such as receivable, okay, payables, borrowing, liabilities, commitment and contingent liabilities. So for government, there are a lot of commitments and contingent liabilities. Sometimes they become guarantor for certain obligations. Okay, these are commitment for the government. Performance indicators, I think as we discussed before, they also can be disclosed in the annual reports along together with the financial statements. Okay, disclosure under cash accounting, encourage disclosures include, this one is all prescribed by IFAC under IPSAS. Okay, extraordinary items, administrated transactions on behalf of agents, major classes of cash flow, related party disclosures, asset and liabilities, comparison with budgets, okay, consolidated financial statements. Okay, so this basically, information that is available in the accounting system, but under cash environment, they are not supposed to be reported in the financial statement. They can be disclosed in the notes as an extra disclosure. Right, now we move on to modified cash accounting. Okay, we have cash accounting, now modified cash accounting. So what does it mean? Right, accounting techniques that recognize transactions and other events when cash is received or paid. Okay, the books are held open for about a specified period, an extension after the year end. Okay, it's about 1 month. Okay, and that's practiced in Malaysian government. Okay, in Malaysian context, Financial Procedure Circular 1, government accounting policy stipulates the use of MCA for the accounts of federal and state consolidated accounts, stated as the accounting basis in the notes of the accounts. Okay, so what does it mean with the modified cash accounting in terms of its practice? So basically, it's referring to the extra period, okay, in the recognizing the transactions that is happening after the accounting period, because the payment is made, but this payment related to transactions incurred before the year end. Okay, so that's why they call it modified. All right. So in other words, the payment is made, but the budget for it is still before the year-end budget. Okay, so in that sense, still this method of accounting, modified cash accounting, is to support the management, the budgetary control of the government for the government organizations. Okay, so that's the payment. So the payments made in after the year end, but the transactions reported before the year end. In this case, is the year end is 31st December 2018. Right. So what is the implications of the extension period? Okay, include transactions after the year end. Okay, so the cash flow at the beginning of the reporting period, but what is being accounted, then it should be deducted for the following year. Okay, although the payments are made for that year, but since it is related to the previous period, so it's not counted for the current year. Okay, and basically, this MCA or modified cash accounting is to support budgets or budgetary control. Okay, so these are the timeline clearly. Payments during the extended period are charged to the prior year's budget. Okay, works are performed, goods are received, and services are rendered before the year end. But the payments for respective commitment has not been disbursed before the year end. Payment for the respective commitments only disbursed after the year end. Okay, but the transactions basically related to the before the year end. Okay, so these are related to modified cash accounting. Okay, cash accounting and evaluation, the benefits, record cash flow. Okay, so very good in terms of, because cash is very important for the governments to be able to manage cash, because the idea of cash is king still also can be applicable in government. Facilitates link with taxations, because tax are basically collecting through on a cash basis. Facilitate parliamentary control, because budget is prepared using cash basis, so as well as the reporting, so very consistent. Problems of cash accounting: provide no information about assets and liabilities. Okay, so not very transparent. Provide no information about creditors or debtors on the financial statements. May not separate capital from revenue expenditures. Not necessarily comprehensive. Little use to management. Okay, in terms of considering for efficiency and effectiveness, other than as cash control. Okay, may undermine efficiency consideration. Right, now we move on. The next techniques in modified accrual accounting. Okay, so I mean accrual accounting is widely known, but now there is word modified with that. So how this being applied in government organizations? Okay, still accrual basis mainly. Okay, but specifically they don't report number two. Physical assets are not presented in the financial statements. Okay, thirdly, only disclose future commitment requirements by recognizing financial assets and liabilities. Okay, so that's the focus. Right, and then of course, full accrual. Transactions are recognized as they earn and incurred. Okay, so this basically, I think, what you understand in the private sector, how accrual accounting being applied. So this also applied in the public sector, but not in a full similar form, but basically the standards being developed, accrual basis accounting standards in public sector is the offshoot, okay, being developed based on the financial accounting and reporting from basically from IFRS. Okay, so but it's being applied to public sector. Okay, record assets and liabilities. I think more comprehensive in terms of more disclosure in the financial statements. Okay, clear separation of revenue and capital expenditures. Facilitate managerial control. Encourage development of value for money. Okay, we talk about efficiency, effectiveness, and economy. Increase financial transparency in public sector. Okay, sharing good practice from private sector. Okay, the challenges requires use of new accounting competency. Okay, relatively new skill set for accountants in public sector who were trained in cash accounting system or in cash accounting environment. Okay, so very simple example of let's say depreciation policy. Okay, so this is in cash environment there is no depreciation policy, whereas in accrual accounting there is depreciation policy. Okay, in terms of revaluation of assets. Okay, in cash accounting there is no revaluation of assets. In the government, in accrual accounting, there's revaluation of assets. So how to do that? Okay, requires considerable use of judgment. I think this one is very popular on the IFRS. Okay, accrual accounting. Accounts and budget should be on the same basis. Okay, with the introduction of accrual accounting for the financial accounts, financial accounting and reporting, whereas budget is still on the cash basis. Okay. So preference for cash basis for parliamentary control, require commitment from management for its usefulness. Okay, so how to translate the accounting accrual-based accounting system so that it also be useful for managers in civil servants. Okay, when we talk about efficiency and effectiveness. Okay, quickly the comparison between these two bases, income. Okay, so I think cash basis is based on cash. Whereas accrual based on earn, that is similarly to expenditures. Okay, assets under cash basis, okay, there is no capitalization of assets, so asset not in the balance sheet. Okay, whereas accrual they do. And liabilities, okay, credit transactions not reported as expenditures when payment made. Okay, so basically, when payment made, then it becomes expenditures. Okay, not recorded as liabilities, even if it is undertaken on the credit basis. Right, now we move on to financial accounting and reporting framework. Okay, so there is IPSASB issuing the accounting standards under IFAC. Okay, I think everybody should know what is IFAC. Right, another example in the UK and US. Okay, so it's charged by the Treasury, and they have the local reporting standard for local authorities. In the US, they have NCGA as well as GASB for the accounting standards. Okay, specifically, I think IFAC, a bit details on IFAC, but I think the focus is on the IPSAS, okay, because these are specifically for public sector accounting standards. I think you should also recognize there is also INTONSAI, International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions. Okay, supporting the international accounting standard for public sector. So this on the INTONSAI role, I think we will discuss at the audit topic. Okay, the objective of ISAS to develop high quality program aimed at improving public sector financial management and accountability, including developing accounting standards and promoting their acceptance. Okay, so now I think public sector IPSAS has been accepted worldwide, including Malaysia. Malaysia issuing MPSAS, they call it. Okay, Malaysian Public Sector Accounting Standards is basically drawn from a standard issued by IPSAS. Okay, because they use a due process and all that, issue the standards. Right, okay, IPSAS also issue conceptual framework for financial reporting for public sector. The conceptual framework issued by IPSAS 2013 to apply to general purpose financial reporting under accrual basis of accounting. Under the conceptual framework, is provide all the relevant concepts that underpinning the financial reporting in public sector organizations. Okay, and it provide guidance. If you look at the last point there, qualitative characteristics of information, okay, including relevance, faithful presentation, and understandability. So very similar to what is there in for private sector organizations. So with that, I end this presentation. Assalamualaikum. If you have any question, do ask me through WhatsApp or PM me. Okay, so most welcome.